Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're taking a look at the Predator Generator Wheel Kit. This features 8-inch flat-free tires, an adjustable steel handle, as well as rubber feet for a generator. It fits a variety of Harbor Freight generators. Today I'm going to be mounting this on not a Harbor Freight generator. And when I was pricing things around, finding this kit with the wheels included and some of the other hardware was going to be cheaper than just buying pairs of wheels alone. So I hope I can make this work. And so let's first of all unbox the kit and see what we get inside. So first of all, let me get the box open here. We've got the instructions. So first is the diagram that shows exactly what's included, and then part numbers, SKUs, and the diagrams. So one of the first things here when you look at the diagram and look at the parts, this assumes that there's some pre-drilled holes actually for the screws that come with this. And then we've got a hardware pouch here. We'll go through the hardware pouch in a moment here. And we've got our pair of the 8-inch tires, and then this is our handle for carrying or pulling the generator. It's got a nice little soft rubber grip on the end here, and then there's 4 mounting holes here to be able to mount it to the side. So with those parts, let's now take a look at what came in the hardware bag. It has the familiar, first of all, when you open the box, it definitely has the familiar hardware, the familiar Harbor Freight's just smell. If you've ever been in a Harbor Freight, you know exactly what that smell is. So we've got 2 brackets here. I believe these are for the mounting feet that it can rest on. And we've got the rubber pads for that. We've got a pen here for holding the handle either upright or down position. We've got some wheel axles. Then we've got a couple large nuts here for the wheel axles. These are lock nuts. We've got a handful of washers and spacers. Again, presumably also for the wheels. And we've also got a bunch of other smaller bolts here. I have a couple different sizes for mounting the feet and the foot bracket to the generator. So then, according to the user manual, all these bolts are metric, which is not surprising because this is, you guessed it, made in China. The first step in putting the feet together is going to be to take our foot, a bolt, and then one of the silver nuts, and we're going to put that together through the bottom of the foot, slide that through the bracket, then we're going to hand thread on one of these lock nuts. And then once we get that kind of snug, we're going to use a 13mm wrench. You can just put the box end of the wrench on. And then we're going to use a 10mm socket to come in on the other side. You can use it just on an extension. You don't necessarily need a ratchet, because if you use the box end of the wrench, you can just tighten it with the combination of the two. Obviously, if you've got the ratchet, you could use that too. And then we've got our foot assembly here. So there's one. I already did the other one here. So there's 2 foot assemblies. Now one thing that's notable that's missing is a leg bracket. There are some generators, if I can use a picture of the diagram here, that have a little bracket and a hole pre-drilled for the wheels. In this case, we're going to have to pre-drill for where our wheels are going to go and get the drill bits for that. We've got our axles here for the wheels. And so we have to get those all set and pick out the right drill bit. Now if we're putting together the wheel assembly, we're going to take our axle here, we're going to use the larger side of the axle. We're going to take the largest size washer, that's going to go over the axle. And we're going to take our wheel, and slide the wheel on over that. And then take our smaller block washer, slide that on the outside, like that. Then we'll take our lock nut and put this on. If you want to use a socket, this is a 14mm socket. And on the back side of this axle there is an offset here, so if you want to get a pair of pliers around that, you can get a pair of pliers around that on one side. Remember, this is a lock nut, so you don't need to get this bolt too tight, because otherwise you want these wheels to spin. That's the whole idea of having wheels on your generator. And that would defeat the point, obviously, if you can't actually roll the generator. And so a few turns with the socket, and we'll have our axle assembly together. Make sure your wheel spins. And then now theoretically, if you have a Harbor Freight generator, you just slide this through the already made hole and then put on one of the larger size bolts, which is here, on the back side through. In my case here, we're going to have to drill those holes. They provide for the other mounts. There's a shorter set of screws and a longer set of bolts depending upon your generator model. You're not going to need all the bolts that come with the kit. And so we'll have to get my generator ready for that. And now let's go over to the generator and get ready to drill. So here's my relatively new Ford generator. If I'm not mistaken, this is actually just a rebranded version of a Pulsar generator. Got it on clearance at the Big Green Box store recently. It's a very simple design. There's basically one set of outlets here that are your regular 120 volt outlets. Then you've got 12 volt cigarette lighter. And then you've got two USB ports down there. And so this doesn't do a lot, but it does just enough of what I need to do to be able to power some outdoor power equipment, as well as being able to power an auxiliary water pump. I used this last one when we lost power. I needed to be able to provide emergency power for a sump pump. And so with this, the big flaw with it is there's no wheels on it. Gas tank's up here, and the part of my house where I need to use this in my yard is on the opposite side of where my garage is, and quite frankly I don't want to carry this around, so I want to add some wheels to it. And so I'm going to flip this on its side, and then the wheel end, because it's not a through axle, is going to go on the side where the pull cord is. Air filter's over here, then here's my fuel shutoff valve. And then there are no pre-drilled holes where the wheels might go. Some generators already have pre-drilled holes here, especially the Harbor Freight ones that this is designed for. You should just be able to bolt that right on, but this is not one. So then to get my holes set and lined right, I used a 15/32 drill bit and drilled a hole here, and I've got this as a pocket hole jigged right angle piece. And because of this little ledge right here on the side, I can set this on the side and use this as the drill guide, and then repeat the process on the other side so that I can drill nice, clean parallel holes. And so I can get my wheels the exact same height in the same location so it all looks nice. And so now I've got my jig made, and now it's a matter of drilling my first hole. Now that we're this far in, we're going to add a little drop of oil here to our drill bit, just to keep things nice and cool and lubricated. Alright, now we got our first hole, and we're going to use a file to deburr it. Now with a flat file, I'm going to use that to get rid of some of the outside shavings. On both the inside and the outside. If we come around and take a look at how this looks on the back side, you can see there's actually, see if I'm not in the shadows here, you can see where the drill bit exited the hole here. So we're going to have to get these removed, and obviously this is the reason for a lot of the filing. And then I've got a circular file to come back through the hole to keep that open. And I might even bring the drill back through, just for good measure. Now we'll do our first wheel fit. Now with with the wheel on, what you can see is there's a gap between the thread and the lock nut, so we're going to need to add some washers there to be able to fill in the gap. If we look at the sideways, we're going to see a wheel on there that looks nice. Obviously the unit's on its side, and so I've got one more hole to drill and get some washers on there, and then we'll move on to getting the other feet on. Here's how it looks with the first wheel. I only had to add one washer to it. There's a little bit of play in the wheel, but that's fine, because remember this needs the ability to be able to roll. I can tighten up my outside nut here a little bit just to be able to make that, or be able to control my wheel there. And now on to the other side. And then just based on how my jig was designed, I came back to the miter, saw to flush up the end there, because remember I had the off-hanging end. And now this will have to go relative to the same cross member here, and then come back here, and then have to drill this from the inside going across, just so we get the same bolt position as on the other side to make it all aesthetically look good. So with to come from the inside this time, it'll be a tad bit more difficult to go from the inside, but you'll just make sure that everything is all nice and square and in alignment. So now, one more hole. Alright, now it's time to attach. I'm going to show you attaching the second wheel here. I'm going to be using, that's the wrong wrench here. I'm going to be using the 17mm wrench to tighten up the bolt on the inside. I'm using an 11/16 wrench to hold the axle that has a offset side to it. I can get my 11/16 wrench around, and now it's got to tighten up the bolt. And now we can see with the two rear wheels on, and the reason I put the rear wheels on first is I need to make sure I can get the other heights to be able to level it out to make sure that what's on the wheels, the generator sits flat. So now let's flip this over on its side so we can see the generator with its weight on two of the wheels. Alright, there we go. So now at this point, I can at least lift the generator and roll it along. So already right there is a big improvement that I can roll the generator. And now we have to get the feet on. And so now when I got the generator flipped on this side, you can see one of the reasons for the wheel position is that when I flip it on its side this way, the weight is also off the wheels. So now I can work on adding the feet that we assembled earlier. Here, just got to make sure I get the height set up right so that the generator will sit level when the feet are on. Based on my measurements, what's interesting is if I take these feet and the feet brackets that came from Harbor Freight, these are almost the same width as a cross member here, and the height is perfect, so all I got to do is just figure out an inset distance here off of the already drilled existing foot. Unfortunately, these feet here aren't quite long enough to make it work with the feet, so I need the feet extensions. And there's no pre-existing holes here, so we'll have to find up, maybe we'll just go centered over the existing feet. On the outside it's probably good enough. And we've already got the bolts, so now I've got to figure out the drill bit size and then come back and drill 4 holes. So now to drill the holes for the feet, I'm going to use a 9/32 inch drill bit. And then I've already lined up my foot, made a mark with a marker. I can see it here, unfortunately it's black on black, so it's going to be a little bit harder to see. Now here's all 4 feet, or the two feet on. I did up my drill bit size to a 7/16 inch drill bit, and now using a 10mm socket and wrench, I'll tighten up my bolts, and then we'll be done at the bottom with our wheel and feet. So then using a 13mm wrench and a 10mm socket, I went around and tightened up all my bolts, and now they're all secure. And now we're ready to flip the machine over and level her out. Now if we look at the end of the generator that has the feet on it, this is the exhaust side of the generator, and this is where we're going to want to mount our tow handle. Now in this specific generator here, there is no mounting cross member here. A lot of the other generators have a cross member that'd be somewhere about here that this would just bolt right onto. So up here we've got the handle here, and so we're going to make some accommodations at the top. And to make that work, I went out and bought a couple of U-bolts. These are stainless steel U-bolts. And so then with the plate on the back, I'm going to drill 1 hole through here, and then that'll go through the upper piece of metal. And this is sized so that it'll go through the trim, or go through the attachment holes here and come back on the other side. So then my U will go around the bar, and then on the other side here, we've got this pin that came with the handle, and there was a lanyard that came with it too. We'll run the other end of that lanyard through the other end of the other side of the handle on the U-bolt. You'll hold it up. Now it's important when you're setting this up here that when the handle is in the down position, it's not blocking or impairing the exhaust on the generator. You want to make sure you can get as much air flowing in and around and out of the engine to keep it cool. So now I've got to drill 2 more holes to be able to mount this, and then we'll be done. We've got the handle installation complete now, and as you can see I've got the front flange of the handle towards the outside where the handle flips up here, and it comes a little short of 90, but once you lift it up, I'm able to lift up the generator here. Perhaps you heard the gas in the tank there swish. And then we've got the bolts here. I ended up placing the plates that came with it on the back side here, and these are tightened up. I had to come back with an angle grinder and cut down the length of these bolts. They were a little too long. I cut them the first time before I actually installed it with my cutoff wheel, and then tighten up the nuts, and then I can take my handle and lift up the generator. And now I can roll the generator around wherever I want it, or store it away in the garage. And then the pin that you see dangling there is attached around one of the loops of the U, and so then I can slide it through here and hold the handle up. One reason you might want to have the handle up is just to make sure you've got easy clearance if you're working under here and keeping everything away from the exhaust valve. That'll get hot. Or you can put it down, put the pin back in, and that locks the handle out of the way, so now it can't come up. And so we look at this generator from the side, with the exception of these nuts here. Now I suppose I could have painted these black and maybe cut it a little bit shorter. You can hardly tell it didn't actually come with a wheel kit. I'm very glad that I have it on so that I can wheel my generator around my yard. If I need to use it with a leaf blower or anything else to need to run off of a generator. So I hope you found this useful about the Harbor Freight generator handle and wheel kit. And have a great day. Bye.